everyone. Very happy to be here, and I'm so sorry that I'm not speaking German. As they say, it takes at least 100 years to master the language, and I'm only 3 years into it, so maybe in the next life, but let's see how that goes. Again, as Gottfried said, thank you for the introduction. I will be talking about internationalization today. And the presentation is not up, but I'll still start. OK, now it's there. So internationalization. As I said, I'm a global scaling advisor, so what do I do? On a daily basis, I talk to German startups. Minimum, I would say, 4 to 5 startups on average. On a yearly basis, up to 300 startups. And I try to understand how they feel about internationalization, what product they have, what could be a fitting market for them, and then how can we help them to scale there. When I ask them the question, how do you feel about internationalization? The very first response or reaction is, it's too difficult, too many resources, we need to know people in the local market, we don't have the time, we don't have the extra team, and it just sounds too complicated. Or if you talk about internationalization, they're very happy to talk about US. But the moment you talk about Asian markets or anything else, they are reserved about it. And they're not wrong. When you talk about global scaling, in general, there's a lot of effort and time that goes into it, and a lot of resources as well. So the fear is very genuine, I would say. But that's why, when you have any kind of support available, we always advise to take it. And why? Here are the examples of 3 tycoons and corporates who are known for their internationalization, have gone to different countries, and in some examples have failed miserably, I would say. I would love to start with Walmart. I'm sure you guys are aware of it. They tried to enter your own home market. They came with big dreams. They had the biggest pocket. They had their Silicon Valley strategy. They were so successful, and they thought, Germany, fine, sure, we can conquer that market, and why not? This overconfidence is what we say kind of the reason they did not succeed so much. They failed to understand what the local customer really want, not just in terms of requirements and needs, but on value system. One of the things they did, like when you enter a Walmart, they had somebody there to greet you. It did not sit really well with them that, OK, why is there an extra person there to say hello to me? Second, there was somebody there to bag their groceries. Again, Germans are so self-sufficient, and they were like, I do not need another person to come and put my stuff in a bag. I can do it by myself. Those were small things that were bothering them, but the biggest thing was the employee union. Walmart came with the same thing, like in the US, they do not have it. They did not want to have it in Germany as well. And as we say, that was the last nail in their coffin. At the end of it, they end up losing almost 1 billion in the German market, and they sold their business and moved back. If we take Uber, they went to China, again, super confident, end up losing 2 billion. Reason? They thought they can just work with the system very well. The government they have such a big gray zone. They can play with it, but they underestimated the power of the local competition. And for Starbucks, something very close because it's about coffee. If you talk about Starbucks, and I can talk more about Asia from my side because I worked with startups in India and in Cambodia, so spent a decent time in Southeast Asia. If somebody has a Starbucks cup, they think, I have a class. That's how people receive it, that you are a premium person. That's the brand value that Starbucks holds in the Asian markets. And something they thought they could also use in Australia. But Australians are very serious about their coffee. They do not care about what class it represents. They care how it tastes. And it was just too sweet for them. So Starbucks went with the same thing, opened like 80 stores in 1 year's time, but people did not accept it. They end up closing 60 stores out of 80. And I believe they lost around 150 million. Now, if you go to Australia, you can find Starbucks only on airports, maybe on some touristy places, but nothing more than that. Now, when I'm talking about internationalization, why am I starting on a negative note? The reason we are presenting these examples for the startups, and I would say enthusiasts as well, companies like them who have the biggest pocket and the brightest of mind, if they could fail, then startups, if you are getting a support system or any kind of help, we should always welcome it with open hands. Now, the favorite question, when should we start with internationalization? As I said, when I talk to startups on a daily basis, the moment I ask, how do you feel about it? Divo, we are too young. We just started our company. We've been only 4 years in the market. I don't think it's the right time right now. Fair enough. Sometimes a startup is 6 months old and way enthusiastic. So this is the common statement that they always say, that internationalization is not relevant for us. The reason they say that is, whenever somebody asks about internationalization, they think I'm asking about scaling. But there's so much work that happens before you really scale to the market. And that is what we're talking about here right now. If you look at the textbook picture of a startup, that's how they think it should be. You have an idea, you build your startup, you grow, you show your success in the home market, great traction, decent money, great team. And once you're confident in your home market, then you think about going to the international market. Nothing wrong with this strategy. It definitely works with most of it. But what I'm talking about is not scaling, internationalization. And as we say, it's a mindset. To start thinking that there is a global market out there, not just your home country, to start looking at and start thinking about, to see how could you grow better, what kind of resources you can get there. So just to start thinking about globalization and different markets is something you can start from day one itself. And it's just not like thinking, oh, I'm going to go international. As I said, there's a lot of preparation work as well, starts getting into it before you scale. So that is something you can start very early on. And then we talk about exploration. Once you kind of have a confidence in a country that, yes, I have some touch point, I see there is a demand for my product, if I work on my strategy, have a decent support system, I might have a market there. That's the time you explore it. That's what we call exploration. And the third is actual scaling, the execution. That's what startups think that I'm asking from day one. When you really go open a subsidiary into that home country, hire people there, and start your business on real time. Now, that is something is for very few startups. But those are the 3 stages that you really go through before you make a decision. Now, why should a startup should go international? We are very happy in our market. We are making decent money, great life, work-life culture. The reason they say mostly is to get more business. Fair enough. Nothing wrong with it, to get more money. Everybody wants it. But what we say is it's just not about scale, just not about money sometimes. There are other factors that you do get. The first is access to growing markets. How the global economy is doing right now, you guys would know it better than me. I would say that things are not so brighter right now. And if we even talk about advanced economies, Brexit, trade wars, there's so much happening right now. The growth is kind of lull at the moment. But if you look at the emerging markets, if you look at India, Indonesia, Africa, you will see very bright numbers. What does that show? Those markets have scope for growth. They are looking for innovative products. They have actual problems where they're looking for products which can solve them. The people who are ready to buy it and use it. Of course, there are reasons when you're going to a market, the same pricing would not work. Something we'll talk about at a later point of time. But that shows there is a chance, there's a scope where you could really scale faster, how you could scale in your own home country right now, where growth is comparatively slower. And as I said before, sometimes not just scaling, that's the first thing that comes to our mind. If I'm going to a new market, I'm going for money, I'm going to increase my revenue, fair enough. But there you will find examples of startup who does not go there just for the revenue part. There are multiple things. Number one, additional resources. In what term? Sometimes it could be talent, sometimes it could be knowledge. We have had startups who has invested almost up to 2 years just to learn from the brightest mind from a specific market, did not go there first. Just learn what's happening there, how are they building it, and once they did it, then they just replicate it in their home country and as well as the market where they learned it from. Welcoming ecosystem. What do I mean by that? I have a very recent example, actually. We recently finished one of our cohort for UAE, and the kind of ecosystem available there when it comes to regulations, they are very, I would say, comfortable and very open-minded on how they build regulations around startups. But if you talk about, let's say, Europe and US also at some point of time, let's take an example of blockchain. The regulations are so difficult for a lot of startups, it's kind of more difficult to scale or build it in the home market or other markets. But if they go to something like Singapore or UAE or Middle East, they have the facility of sandboxes, closed spaces with open regulations so they can really test and try what they're trying to build. And once they show the success, then definitely they can replicate it and they could see how they could comply with the regulations in other countries. But at least to start testing it is something a lot of markets do allow it. One of the recent examples was there was a startup who is currently building, I would say, something similar to a train, and they are just not able to get the approval from the German government to test it in an open ground somewhere. Safety reasons, very valid reason not to let them test it in an open ground where possibly there could be people around. But the same startup got a facility in the UAE from one of the partners where they got a full city with a closed area where they could test their product. The same approval would have taken a couple of years to do in UK or in Germany, but the same thing happened for them in 2 months. So we are talking about the growth, the speed, and the scale. And everybody's favorite, funding. How things are in home market, or numbers would not like to focus so much on, you would know better than me. But access to capital and funding is obviously one of the biggest reasons why also startups start looking towards the foreign markets. And the last, one of the fourth important is mitigate risk and competition. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, emerging markets, they have a need for your product, but there's so much competition because startups are scared to go there. So they were like, okay, cultural differences, price-sensitive market, I would rather focus in Germany or in Europe, and I would rather not go there. But that's the exact thing what your competition is also thinking. So to take that plunge and learn about that market and go there, you are moving ahead of your competition. We spoke about when to go international, why we should go international, and third would be, where can I go international? Here I have some examples for you to show how startups did it. When I go to conferences or even when I'm talking to startups, I ask them, do you have a market in mind already that you would like to go to? Yeah, Divo, I met a person from China in the conference. He loved my product, and he said he's going to take it and he's going to launch it. I really want to go to China. Fair enough. Did you do a little bit of research? There's a demand for your product. What kind of support system is there? Do you have competition? Following as a lead is a great thing, but have you done other parts of it? Most of the time, the answer is no. Because the strategy for a lot of startups is that you have a lead, you follow it, you test and try, and then you see how it goes for you. Once in a while it works, but most of the time it ends up wasting a lot of time and efforts. That's why we say, when it comes to choosing a market, you should do it strategically. You should see if I have a need for my product there, if I have a strong ecosystem and network there, what kind of political situation is there? Can my product and can my team survive there? For a lot of startups, value system is also a very big thing, that I do not align with the value of the people over in that country, so I would not like to work there. In the beginning, sometimes they think it might not be a big factor, but once they move there, it really becomes a big issue for them. So these are the topics to look at before you really go to a new market. Now, example, as I said, for a lot of startups, once they have a strong presence in the home market, then they start thinking about internationalization. I have an example of startup called HydroNew. They built IoT system for smart manufacturing for aquaculture. So basically shrimp farming in open ponds. So when they started it, they thought of Germany first, but very soon they realized that there's a bigger market out there where we could grow faster, rather than putting our resources and time into the German market. What did they do? They joined one of the programs. Before even thinking of how they're going to go to the market, first thing they did, they connected with a local expert from the same industry there, try to understand what is the scope of their product in that market, in Southeast Asia. They were not even sure which country to start with in Southeast Asia. So from local experts, they got into the brainstorming, they went there, they met local competition, their actual clients who could be a potential client, did a lot of workshops, and in the end, the strategy they decided was, we're going to launch ourselves as a German Thai startup. Reason? The moment the name German is attached to any product and they go to Southeast Asia or Asia for that matter, it has a very strong weight to it. People really believe if something is German-made, it's solid. That works for them. But here, you're also working with farmers, people who are working on ground level. For them, their own country matters a lot. They believe in a German product, but they also want trust. That is something that comes from the Thailand part. Hence, they launched themselves as the German-Thai startup. They had the loyalty part, they had the confidence, and it worked like a charm for them. Now, recently, now they have offices in Singapore, in Thailand. They're super successful there, have a team of almost 50 people, winning all the governmental projects there and working very well compared to Germany. Then I have a very different example of a medical company called Ambos. That's the example I was talking about. They invested 2 years before they really went to the market. Rather than going right away, in their case, they took 2 years, prepared very well, and then launched themselves in the market. And within a couple of months, they were up and running. And very soon, they had almost 60% of market share. The reason I'm sharing this story is to tell where and when is such a subjective question. The single rule of I have to grow, become stable, and then I should go to a different market does not apply. You will find examples where people go to international markets from day one, an example of companies who have been in the home market for 10 years, and then they go to international. A couple of more examples, but I'm a bit short on time, but I will pick up my favorite one, which is Quantilope. Their cool strategy was they really wanted to go to the US. Given a startup, they had less money, less resources. What they did, they opened an office in Hamburg, which was working on the timings of US. So basically, a team sitting in Hamburg working on US time. So they started following up on their sales lead from Germany, started building their business. When they really had a concrete revenue from the US and a strong confidence that it's really working, that's when they went to the US, opened a subsidiary, and hired a local team there. Again, depending on product and team, there are different ideas and strategies that a startup could find. And I will move past soon from here. Single thing about how should we go international, or what would the strategy? As a startup founder, we are very confident that I know my product, I know my market, I know it all. But the simple thing of going with the mindset of I do not know nothing is a very big reason. How much ever you know about that market, you still have to go like you know nothing and start from scratch zero. That was the mistake that Uber did. We know China, we know how people work there. That was the mistake that Starbucks did, to have that confidence, we know it all. And that is something we ask the startups to avoid, and also to take the support as you get to learn about these markets and grow there. So when? It's never too early, it's never too late to start thinking about the topic. And why? Global scaling is obviously more than finding additional customers. A lot of time, a talent and other opportunities. To where I said, bigger isn't always better. Sometimes it's the market attractiveness, that do you really have a need for your product is what you choose. And how, as I just said, keep an open mind, like a child, like that I know nothing, and go with that to learn more about that market. Now, why am I talking about it, and what does Start to Group does in it? I kept saying that we provide support, and if you get a support, you should take it from open hands. So we are Start to Group. We are active globally. We are active in the Americas, in Asia, offices in 9 cities across the world. We are an ecosystem player, we would say that. We work with startups very closely, we work with corporates, and we work with governments. But this is what is the interesting slide for you guys. German Accelerator is the project that we have been running for the last 12 plus years now. German Accelerator is a government-funded program. Money comes from BMWK. So basically, we run the programs to help the startups to go international, to the US, to Asian countries, and now also to South America. And your invoices will be taken care of by the government. So you come, take the help of the local mentors, go to the country, really see what opportunities do you have there, and then make a decision if you are really ready to put your time and resources into that market. We are a very fairly small team of 90 people across the globe, and we work with industry-agnostic startups. So obviously, we cannot know all of it. The main reason is we have a mentor pool of almost 1,000 plus industry experts around the world, and that is our key strength. These are people on management position from different industries who have worked in the industry and markets, and they know what they're talking about. Couple of examples of startup we have worked with. On a yearly basis, we work with 1,600 plus startups, and we screen around 8,000 startups. You will see a couple of unicorn names as well. Some numbers, and here's me. You guys can feel free to connect with me if you're interested in the topic, have any questions about it. Always happy to have a chat and talk about it. Thank you so much.